many times they go on the ladder?
Y'all go like both.
5.
What size is like your mouse?
No.
Each like a girl.
Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Williston City Council. It is Tuesday, May the 16th. It is 6 p.m. And I will ask the city clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Goodman, he's absent. Council President Jones.
Here.
Vice President Robinson.
Here.
Councilmember Cox.
Here.
Councilmember Bullock.
Yeah.
Councilmember Hines.
Here.
City Manager Terry Bavard.
Here.
Finance Director Stephen Bloom.
Here.
City Clerk Latricia Wright. I'm here. City Attorney Scott Walker. He is on his way. And all other staff.
Here.
Thank you for coming. Before we go any further, I would like to welcome again the 2 new members of our council who were brave enough to come back again. We're glad to have you. At this time, we are going to stand for the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Robinson is going to do that for us.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day and the blessings that you have given us for. We pray to come to you and pray that our national, state, and county leaders would look to you for guidance, and with that guidance do what's best for the people and also for the country, Lord. Be with our police as they protect us in the city and protect them in everything that they do, and be with the fire department and the EMTs, Lord. And we ask that you would just lay your hand of protection upon them also. And also, Lord, we pray that you would just be with all the city employees as they work for the betterment of this city, Lord, that they will do what is right and what is needed for the residents of our city. Be with the council tonight, Lord, that the decisions made will be in the best interest for our residents and for this city. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our item number 1 on our agenda is the additions, deletions, changes, or approval of the agenda as it stands.
I do have a change.
You do have a change. Who said that? Laura. Yes, ma'am. What you got?
You had a discussion with possible action from Homestead Park with Matt Crandall, and he said to go ahead and take them off the agenda.
Okay. Let me find that.
Item 6A.
Find the page. All right. Thank you very much. Anyone else? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval as amended.
I'll make a motion that the agenda be approved as amended.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from anyone? All in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 2 is proclamation for National Public Work Week, and that's going to be done by City Manager Terry Bavard.
All right, if I can get the public works people to come up here, please. Jonathan, Donald, Mike, Dallas, y'all guys come on up here. David, come on. Come on, let's go. The mayor asked me to fill in for him tonight to read this proclamation, working with the city utilities department over the brief time that I've spent here, that I can tell you most certainly that although water and fire are definitely important to the safety of the citizens here, I can assure you when people don't have water or electricity, they're just as unhappy. I can tell you that we do an excellent job of this crew of bringing together the things and resources that we need in the city. With that, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Proclamation, City of Williston, Florida. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives. Whereas the support and understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operations of public works systems and programs, which is water, sewer, streets, highways, public buildings, solid waste collection, parks, maintenance. And whereas the health, safety, and the comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skills of public works officials. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff Public Works Department materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform, now therefore, the City Council for the City of Williston, Florida, does hereby proclaim week May 21st through the 27th, 2023, as National Public Works Week. In the City of Williston, it calls upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and recognizing the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life, passed and duly adopted in a regular section the 16th day of May, 2023, by the seal of Charles Goodman, Mayor. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay.
Your camera's
So-
broken.
Mr. City Manager is damaged.
Is what?
He's left to right.
Jonathan Bishop, you should come to you, okay.
Lee, thanks.
So I will tell you this and not take too much of their time. Wednesday night, so I got drug out of wild card bingo. Last week we had that worst storm we had. The utility department, assisted by the other departments, I will tell you, started work on that problem at 7 o'clock that night, and they went home, 5 o'clock.
Yeah, it was like 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock that night, okay, and went home 10:30 the very next day. And by that time, we had all the services back up, minus one.
10:30 the next morning.
Yeah, next
Yeah,
morning.
yeah.
And, so they worked all through the night, did a great job, and it wasn't just electric, it was a combination of everybody. And as a unit, as a utility department, these guys do an excellent job. And I just want to say thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Come on, hang on to this and Frank, put them on.
Yes, it was a terrible storm. If any of you saw the pictures, of course, we lived it because we were here. I'm happy to say it affected my neighborhood, but the trees were not down in my neighborhood. But I didn't have power for most of that time. But I saw the pictures of the trees. Y'all had your hands full. Well, I think it was a pole, a tree that pulled down a whole line of poles. You had to string up the whole line. Yeah. You could tell by looking at it, it was pretty bad. We appreciate it, all of you. All right, now this is the first opportunity for public participation. You have up to 5 minutes to talk to us about something that is not on our agenda. If you would like to speak at this time, there is a second opportunity at the end of the agenda. If you have anything you'd like to add at this time, please come to the podium. Mr. Johnson, please state your name for the record.
Marvin Johnson, owner of B&M Municipality in Williston. One of the things that's not, and I want to thank Jonathan and his crew too, because they do an excellent job.
Thank you.
When my lights
They do.
blink at the shop, they come right back on. So what you guys do, so appreciate it. I was wondering what's the status of renaming the street or the signs for in honor of Ava Seabrooks and Virginia Greenlee. Because I've been absent and I haven't heard anything. I know everything else is going on in this city, and that's the only thing that's kind of slipped past me.
I think we put that in the hands of our road department, and I would like an update as well.
Yes, sir, the signs, we're going through the design of the signs through Latricia, and they're fixing to be ordered, and the date is subject to change, correct? So what date is it?
June 9th.
Oh, wow.
June 9th.
June 9th at 3 o'clock, they will be dedicating the road.
Okay,
So we're moving forward.
I'll put that on your calendar.
So the sign will be in June?
Yes, sir, should be in before then, yes, sir.
June 9th.
Fantastic.
3 o'clock p.m.
Wow. Okay, that's all I've got. I'm glad I come back and get good news.
How about that? Thank you. We can all put it on our calendar. All right, anybody else at this time? Nothing online? Okay, then we will move to item number 4, which is the consent agenda, which consists of the council meeting minutes of May the 2nd. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Make a motion, we approve consent agenda.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 5 is updates, and we will start with the city manager for staff, board, council updates.
All right, thank you, Madam President. Just to bring you an update on a couple of things we're working on. So just so you know, the Morales Development Agreement has come back from the city attorney, and we are going over our part and making the changes that we'd like to see, and then of course we'll send them back to them for some additional changes. So it's in draft form, but it's very close to being done, which I know the Morales people will be very happy. So we have that we're working on. I will tell you that we've just got a notice that back that I think we're number 8, I think the Laura figured out on the Community Development Block Grant application self-score. So that's a very high score, so it looks pretty good for the Community Development Block Grant that we put in for. I will tell you also that I have received a draft back from Wright Pierce on the roads for the golf carts. So I am currently reviewing that. I have a meeting set up on Thursday to speak to the core group about that, to go over it, and so hopefully we'll be bringing that back to you as a finalized document. And it's looking pretty good too.
And people are asking about that, so I was on my list for tonight.
So we have,
Appreciate that.
we have, like I said, the roads identified, but we want to go through the process also.
Sure.
And so far Wright Pierce has done an excellent job in putting together a good draft to move forward with.
Have we ordered signs yet?
I would like to say yes, but that's probably no.
Okay, so we know we need signs. We don't know how many, but we know we need signs. So can we order some to get a head start
Now I
on
think
it?
we,
He's
now we
shaking
have
his
the
head at me.
draft, now that we have the draft, we will know how many signs.
That's
So,
exactly what I've been waiting on.
So,
I don't wait now. Okay.
yeah. Some not so good news, update on the Mixon well. So as you know, the Mixon well was taken offline a little while back. We had some issues with, the pump, we thought, but it actually turns out to be the transformer. The transformer is gonna have to be replaced, and the automatic transfer switch on the generator is gonna have to be replaced. So, the transformer, we're looking for one now, could run anywhere from $15,000 to $24,000 for that transformer. We do have our sights on one that's in Wildwoods at $21,500. We can get it in a couple of days. So anything else is about 6 weeks out, and then the transfer switch can run anywhere from $7,000 if we can repair the current one that we have. And as you know, the transfer switch, the power goes out, it transfers the generator power, turns it on electronically, starts it up, runs the well, shuts it back off. The system on there is fairly old. If we can find the part for that, we will fix it. That'd be about $7,000 total, with the part being about $1,000. And if the system is so old that we cannot find the part, which we think we located one in California,
Yes, sir.
then we'll do that route. If not, then our only option is replace the transfer switch, which could cost us up to $15,000 plus another $8,000 for installation. So that's quite a costly repair, but as you know, that's one of 4 wells we have that's currently down, and because it is down, it is affecting some water pressures in the north, where it's located. That's all the information I have, and they may have more.
Perfect. Any questions for the city manager? Any additional comments from staff? Chief Ross.
Just to bring up on a couple of little things from the police department. The insurance claim for the wrecked vehicle that was totaled has been settled. Miss Latricia received the funds from that. But on top of that, other bad news is we had another car that blew head gaskets. It's a 2014 Dodge Charger. It's got 100,000+ miles on it. It's not worth fixing. So now we're down 2 cars. We're looking at trying to figure out how we can get these cars replaced, because we gotta have them for spare vehicles. Because now we've got 2 more cars. These Chargers are starting to just shut down. Now we got 2 more cars up at Williston Tire that's having overheating problems again. So, we're working on that, and I'm gonna talk with Steven and city manager about a few ideas that I have. We've been assisting the Dunn Police Department with helping them rebuild. So, you know, pretty much all of their staff walked out, including their administrative assistant. Brooke's been over trying to help them get all their FDLE and David and all those certificates up to date to make sure that they're in compliance so they don't have any further issues. The mayor has been very, very thankful for us helping him out over there. So I just want to bring that to the council, let y'all know that we've been assisting them.
As long as he doesn't get any ideas and steal our officers.
We'll talk about that later.
Anything else? Any other staff? Mr. Bishop?
Yes, ma'am, just a reminder that,
Friday, correct?
yes, Friday, the 9:30 starts, 10 o'clock will be the televised part of it, and so that'll go to 2 o'clock, and it'll be with DEO funding program with the state and the federal folks coming in. Yeah, for the funding workshop, sorry about that.
And somebody asked me, are the ready funds state funds, as strictly state dollars, or are they state and federal?
Well, a ready community is designated by your county,
Right,
so
I
it's
realize
typically a
that.
state funding, but there are federal funds that see that you're a ready community and rank you a little bit higher.
Okay, so it's both. The ready community helps with both.
Yes,
Thank
it
you.
definitely is helping with some of the infrastructure grants that are coming out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anyone else from staff have anything at this time? All right. Anyone from council? Mr. Robinson?
Have we taken the Peso building at top of the hill?
Yeah, one right next to Tractor Supply.
I do not know the answer to that, but I will find out.
I think she said last meeting, judge to sign off.
I'll text her and maybe have an answer to that shortly.
Okay, all right.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other council members? Have another opportunity at the end, but if nothing at this time, we will move then to item number 6, new business. Having removed item A, we'll move to B, review of March 2023 financial report. Finance Director, Mr. Stephen Bloom.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about your mid-year financials. It's a good time to kind of go through your financials. Budget season is actually already started for next year, as well as you've been had some workshops about rates and different things. So it's kind of a good opportunity to kind of see where you're at compared to your budget, kind of reaffirm some things we talked about during the budget process, as well as set the stage for your next budget. So like we normally do, we're going to start with the general fund. And as a reminder for the general fund, the first quarter and the first half of the year, you get...
We don't know. It's wireless. Something's interfering. That's all I can tell you. It's probably a cell phone.
The first part of the year is when you get a significant portion of your property taxes. So the general fund always looks awesome in the first half of the year. And then obviously throughout the year you don't get as much property tax, and then you use that up until you get to the end. So really when I'm presenting the first half, and even, you know me, the first, I guess 75% of the year, it's more about looking at your spending as well as looking at the other sources of revenue. Okay, try this. So, with that in mind, looking at the general fund, right now your property taxes are about 79% collected. And you can look at the chart there, and anything that is in green means it's at or above where we expected, and then anything in blue is kind of what's, lagging. And again, when we do this, it's a straight line approach, which means we're taking your budget and at this point dividing it by 2. So not everything has that kind of timing, but at least gives us some, way of looking at things. And when you look at this, obviously, property taxes doing well. Your public service taxes are a little bit behind, but that'll pick up, and we'll talk about that when we get to your utility fund. Franchise fees, well above budget. Your interlocal government revenue is a little bit behind, but not too bad. Fines and forfeitures are behind, but they are a very small portion of your budget. And then license and permitting, particularly permitting, is doing extremely well, and I put on there it's 116% of your budget, through the first, 6 months. So certainly doing extremely well. We did the withdrawal on the loan for the fire building. That's $100,000. That's in there as well. And overall, again, the numbers look very solid. It's still early, 50% of the year, but it's a good start, certainly for the general fund. On the next slide, again, we're looking at spending now for the general fund. And again, anything in blue, when you look at the chart there, means that it's at or above budget, and anything in green is either at or below budget. So again, it's not really, everything is not a straight line approach, and I'll explain that here in a second, but it's always a good way of kind of starting to look at it. And then what I usually try to do is, if you're above budget, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just means it needs to be explained and reviewed, and that's kind of what we do when we have these discussions. So, city council, legal, admin, all well below budget. IT is the first one to talk about. If you remember, 2 things. One is we had to get some additional software licenses. That is a part of why it's over, but even more higher amount is the new software, the GovTech software. It was an upfront, money that was put into it, about $112,000. It's budgeted, so it's not bad that it's this high. It's just, making sure that I explain it and we look at it. So certainly the software licenses was not budgeted, but the bigger piece, the $112,000, was. A portion of that is being covered by ARPA funds, just as a point of reference. And then P&Z, again, it's above budget, but we know why it's above budget, because you've got $297,000 in revenue that's obviously offsetting that, so that is good. Police and fire, it's only halfway through, but it's good to see them well in the green in both accounts. Animal control is above budget. Now again, the interesting reason why is the animal shelter was budgeted to take a portion of the salaries. Animal shelter was just, open, so that particular line item is still going into animal control, which means animal control is slightly over. Again, when you look at 2 departments together, obviously they're fine. Public Works is a little bit higher. There's, again, some fuel maintenance fees that are certainly coming in higher, and it's across the board, really. But obviously, Public Works has a higher percentage of their cost that comes from vehicle repairs, maintenance. So they're seeing that. It's just a little bit above budget. A library building maintenance is a little bit higher. Again, a very small budget. Special events already has the fireworks cost in it, and again, that's for the whole year. So again, overall, when you look at this, it's doing well. It's about 46% for the entire general fund. 50% is at budget. So that gives you an idea. I mean, it's not well below, but it's certainly right on track, which is kind of where you want to see it at 50%. Next slide. So airport is up next. Airport's doing very well. Now, a big piece of that is timber sales. So about $277,000 in timber sales. But even without that, they are still doing well above what they were expecting to have for the year. Now, when you look at that chart to the right there, that's their revenue. The only thing that's in blue is interest income. Everything else is well above budget. Fuel, T-hanger, leases, even their miscellaneous income is either at or exceeding budget. And their spending is below budget as well, with the exception of fuel sales, fuel purchases, which again, you need for the fuel sales. So doing very well. I have not had to change their AR allowance. We talked about it in the past. They're still doing very well with collections, which again does affect their bottom line if I have to increase that allowance. So again, doing very well for the airport. And then I always like to show how much spending in terms of capital projects. Right now it's only about 26,000 through the first 6 months, but that's expected to pick up. Okay, CRA fund. Again, it right now has a deficit, but that's strictly about spending on projects. There's about $408,000 in Main Street arcade signs, kind of across the board, kind of the projects that you've heard about. They're actually using. I can tell you that the county distribution was received in December, about $228,000, which is actually a little bit above what we budgeted. So that gives them a little bit of additional revenue to put towards their projects. There's nothing here, that I wouldn't expect to see, as they were intended to spend the money on these projects. CalLink, I can report, that they have started billing. It's a small amount, but they are certainly, getting there. At this point, they're really still primarily using the grant, the upfront grant, to kind of cover the cost until everything picks up, and then we'll kind of see where it goes from there. I'll just continue to report on it. Okay, so the utility fund. So the first thing I want to mention and kind of remind, the utility fund was budgeted to use cash reserves. And again, this is important as you guys are talking about rates and why all this stuff is coming in front of you. When we did the budget and we looked at everything, we budgeted to use cash reserves of about $325,000. That's coming off of a year, meaning 2022, where you had budgeted to use over $400,000. So again, at some point in time, and I think you've already heard this, so I'm probably sound like a broken record, you can't keep doing that. Your cash reserves cannot continue to maintain that. The other part of what has helped you is the ARPA funds. And so you'll continue to hear that as we do the workshops and talk about different things. There's a lot of, even though there have been smaller projects, whether they've been engineering projects or vehicles or whatever, they've been able to get done because of the ARPA funds. And obviously these ARPA funds are a one-time deal. Once they're done, they're done. So in looking at where you are right now, you had budgeted to be about $325,000 of cash reserves. For the first 6 months, you've already used $200,000 of cash reserves. So you are running a little bit heavier than you intended. Now again, some of that will get caught up when you get into the summer months, as we know. The billings for those months pick up. The other thing in terms of why this is occurring versus what we budgeted is, if you remember, when we had originally planned for the electric rates to increase, it was much sooner, to get through the process than it actually occurred. So in essence, we lost, I think it was two months of additional revenue, which kind of would put you right back in line with your budget when you look at that. So that is certainly a big part of when we start talking about your budget moving forward. Is not only are you going to have to worry about things like pension and insurance, but also you're going to have to figure out how to but make up for that ARPA funds that you're using either last year or certainly this year. There's ARPA spending in there. So it's certainly something part of why we want to talk about, keep mentioning it, and certainly that's why you've had the workshops and the rate studies. Overall, when you look at your revenue so far, you are short, as I mentioned. You're at about 45% of your revenue, but your spending is actually a little bit over 45%. So that's why you're kind of upside down. Now the next chart is kind of the one that I like to kind of really showcase this for each of your services. So again, we've talked about this before. There's two things that I look at: the operating income line. That is before the transfer to the general fund, because that is strictly kind of how is each service doing from an operational standpoint. Only solid waste is a little bit behind, and that's partly because we have to use a little bit more on-site staff than intended, but not much. The rest of them actually are favorable, or making money. Now, gas is in the black, which isn't something new. Considering, and again, you did have a rate change on that as well, so it is good to see When I looked at it, I believe it was about 120,000 year over year of revenue just for gas. So again, it shows some impact. And then water and sewer are above. But then you get to the green line, and that's after the transfer. And again, the transfer is not an optional thing. So now all of them are in the red except for electric, which is not anything new. The only thing new would be the expectation was that the electric was actually would be a little bit higher at this point. And again, that's where we kind of, with the 2 months being short. So some of this, again, will pick up in the summer months. That's just a natural, again, when you're using a straight line approach, that doesn't really account for the summer months. So it's not like you won't make up some of this, but it's certainly something that we've got to address and keep an eye on, and certainly we'll have to look at for budget season. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, I was trying to say, any questions so far?
Why was we 2 months short?
Well, short's probably not the right word. There was, if the electric rates were implemented 2 months earlier, 10/1, then you would have gotten, additional revenue to cover your spending.
So when we budgeted, we figured it 2 months.
We figured having the full 12 months worth of additional rates.
Okay. Great question. Anything else, Mr. Robinson? Let's see your hand. Nope. Anybody else? All right. Anything else, Mr. Blaine?
Not on this, no.
All right.
Other than, like I said, budget season is right around the corner. The team will be getting their templates. They've already started putting together their want lists. So we'll have some, we'll also have workshops. So just kind of forewarning, I guess.
Great. Yeah. All right. We'll move then to item C, which is Resolution 2023-35, a resolution of the City of Williston, Eby County, Florida, amending the fiscal year 2023-23 adopted budget. That's not right. Is that right?
Yes. So.
The fiscal year 2023-24.
Where I didn't see. Well, mine just says 2023. 2022 to 2023.
That's what I thought. Okay, so that's a typo. So the fiscal year 2022-2023 adopted budget and providing an effective date. Mr. Blaine.
Okay, so normally we do budget amendments once a year. It's normally, again, you have to have it done 60 days after year end. But now I'm going to start recommending doing them twice a year. And here's why. A couple reasons. One is there's so much stuff happening within the city that it is, maybe a couple years ago when I first started, it was a lot easier to kind of maintain the budget amendments a lot lighter, but that's not the case anymore. And so having two will also prevent errors, because I did miss on the fire vehicle for 2022, which is a big number. I did miss that. So I want to make sure, one, we take corrective actions, which is to implement two. And it's just easier and better for the staff, because they're not having to go, oh, you know what, but I did do this amendment, but it'll come along maybe at the end of the year. It's not fair to them, so when they're tracking their stuff. So that's really what we're doing now.
I think we've actually said that out loud in this meeting a couple times. There'll be a budget amendment at the end of the year.
Right, and like the last meeting, there was the 10,000 for, so again, now that's in here. Yeah. So it's not going to be everything. We will have to do a second one, because there's always things that occur, projects that maybe we had expected to be pulled later will come in earlier. But I think, two things that gives me another opportunity to tell you what's going on, the changes, as well as staff, and it's better to do two, so we're making that adjustment. So what you have here is the general fund and the airport. I'll start with the airport because it's so easy. A lot of fuel. So in order to adjust for it, I'm increasing our budget. It's easy to understand and kind of explain. The general fund has a lot more to it. So I'll kind of go through it a little bit, and and a lot of this should be just basically things that you might have already remember. If not, it's certainly worth reviewing one more time. Starting from a top-down approach, as I mentioned earlier, the fire loan, the withdrawal was done this fiscal year. When we had done the budget, we didn't put it in there because we were expecting the last fiscal year. So, basically it's kind of a revenue source and then a revenue expense. It's a net in terms of what the city, but it's important to be able to show that. Building permitting, as I mentioned, just well above budget and only 6 months in, so I'm increasing that by $200,000. On the other side of that, also as part of the permitting, the development fees are also higher. So again, it's important to kind of show that. Grant revenue, I'm increasing that because we are using a little bit more of the ARPA funds. And actually, no, I'm sorry, that's one for the Cornelius Williams Park improvement. That's a separate grant. Again, at the time it wasn't included in the budget. I want to make sure it's there. And so that's most, and then the other big thing in here, not big, but it's in here, is the software maintenance for the licenses. Again, that was already approved. And the thing is, this amendment is really containing everything that council has already approved. So it's really more of a bookkeeping thing, but it's worth kind of repeating and making sure that everyone's aware of what we're doing. The other thing I've included in here is way back in the early part of the year, council approved moving $55,000 for the police salaries down to their capital to spend on a vehicle. So again, as an example, now the police chief will be able to see it in his weekly reports, his budgets, his actuals will line up. And then also
just for the public, that was the deputy chief's salary.
That was the deputy chief's salary. So again, it's not so that it was an additional spending, it was an allocation, reallocation of funds. But again, it really does help when he's looking at his budgets and his actuals. And then I included the street repairs in here as well to the $10,000. So nothing new. Really kind of almost like a recap of the first 6 months for you, and then we'll do it again at year end, a second recap, and it'll just make it a little bit easier and hopefully better for everyone.
Any questions for Mr. Bloom? As he said, all things we've talked about and approved already. Okay, so this is resolution 2023-35. I'll entertain the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-35.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion from anyone? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. My first question on this next item, I don't think this is quasi. This is just a public hearing. Right, correct? Okay, just making sure. All right, so item D, we will open a public hearing. First reading of ordinance 2023-708, an ordinance of the City of Williston, Florida, amending the City of Williston land development regulations as amended pursuant increased housing needs related to an amendment to the text of the land development regulations, providing for amending chapter 60-256, minimum lot requirements and minimum yard requirements, allowing for duplexes and townhomes described herein, providing severability, providing for an incorporation in the city maps, and providing an effective date. Ms. Jones.
Thank you very much.
And may I say the verbiage is way nicer than it was before.
Thank you. So you guys did see this a few months back, and we felt, we took all of your comments and we felt that it was a little bit confusing. So we kind of went over it again with the lawyers and decided to make some very small changes from what you saw. It's been through planning and zoning. So this was a staff initiated code change. We do this when we see trends. We had been asked by multiple residents how they could bring in duplexes and townhomes to be individually owned. Stephen McMillan, our local surveyor, said, you can do that, but I cannot plat them because of the way that your code is written. So if I cannot plat it, which means I can't divide up those lots, then I can't sell them off individually. So it would be one owner for each duplex and one owner for a whole row of townhomes on a parcel. And with with Steve McMillan and with our lawyers, we came up with a better way so that you could own one half of a duplex, or you could own a row home or a townhome of that kind of design. So I did bring a little bit of a drawing, these schematics show you what the changes are visually. So originally, we have our duplexes, which is the way the code is now. They are allowed, townhomes and duplexes are allowed. They're just owned by one person right now. So that would be one owner on one parcel, 13,590 square foot lot, and 100 linear foot lot width, so that's the front. With the code change, you could have two owners, two parcels, a similar lot size, but split into two parcels. So it's 6,800 square foot per parcel. It's actually 10 feet bigger. So we made it just a little bit bigger so that it would fit and the math would be right. So it's 13,600 square feet and a 50-foot lot width. So we cut the lot width in half. They still have the side yard setbacks that they always did. So we did not change the side yard setbacks. I showed you a similar schematic for the townhomes. So right now there's your townhomes. These would be more like apartments. They would be owned by one person and leased or rented out. Septics and wells were allowed. So what we did at your advice, the advice of the council was, if we're going to do this, we're going to change these codes to have multiple owners, multiple parcels in one area. We don't want any septic or wells to be allowed. So we struck that all together, and we made the minimum site area to be 1,800 square foot per dwelling. So that's the entire lot. Okay, so it's interesting. And then your side yards are going to be the same as residential. You're going to have side yards just like anybody else.
I'm a visual person. This helps a lot.
Yeah, I thought this was very helpful.
It is much better explained. Before I was totally confused.
Yeah, and you had every right to be, because it was a confusing ordinance. So we went ahead, we went back to the drawing board, and that's why you're seeing this as a first reading. We did take it back to planning and zoning. We re-advertised it. We didn't want anybody to think we were trying to sneak in a second reading. We wanted to make sure planning and zoning was happy with it, and they did seem to be much more they understood it a lot more as well. So,
okay, any questions for Ms. Jones? No questions. You're thinking about it.
Yeah.
I could tell.
Alright, so on the one that you said that was 50 feet across the front, that is still bigger than what if I had a lot that size, would I be allowed to build a house on it right now?
50 feet?
Yeah.
No. Our minimum lot width right now is 66.
But by doing this, we're going to accept that as 50 feet.
You actually will have to have a 100-foot lot to build your townhome, and then you can plat it into two 50-foot parcels.
Because they don't have to have a setback.
Right, there's no center.
I know that's not exactly the right word, but
there's no yard requirement in the middle because they're attached. So think of it this way. If you have a single family home, right now your minimum is 66 feet. Now you're going to have a duplex on really what is a minimum of 100, but we're going to be able to cut the plat down the middle.
No, I mean, I see what you're saying. I was just curious to know if we're going to allow that to be 50, which technically means we're going to allow somebody to. Technically, that means we're going to allow somebody to take a 100-foot lot, build it, and then say it's okay if we split it and have 50, but not allow somebody else to build a house on at 50.
That's correct, and I'll tell you why. Because what Ms. Jones just said was you don't have the yard requirements in the middle. So it's going to be a much bigger yard doing it this way than it would be if we let people build on a 50-foot lot.
And that was my biggest problem the first time we saw it, because it wasn't exactly stated like this. They've rewritten it so it's stated so that you can understand it much better.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it all. I still think that somebody that builds a duplex, my personal opinion, is building it for an investment for 2 rentals, or to live in one and rent the other. It's just the way I see it.
Or to sell them separately,
But I don't see somebody building
which is what I think
duplexes
somebody
to
wants to do
sell.
right now. I think they want to build one and sell each side.
Right.
So we have 2 current residents of the city who are extremely interested in doing this, and then we have a developer in the city who's been trying to get this type of thing done for a few years. So I know at least 3 people who are on multiple lots who are very interested in doing this. Now, some of their lots are not gonna work, so they're gonna have to either change their lots around or buy other lots, but they are very interested in it, and it's more of, it's sort of like affordable housing, but it's not in an apartment style.
Yeah, I still don't like the idea. I mean, like I said, eventually, one day, the roof's gonna fail on one side, and one person's gonna fix it, and the other neighbor's not gonna fix it, and then there's gonna be leaks or something, or the yard, or stuff parked, and yes, we can create a homeowners association that will probably fail in a set amount of time. And you can't control your neighbor on something like this. I don't know. That's just kind of my opinion, though.
Any other questions? All right, I would entertain a motion for first reading, ordinance 2023-708 on first reading.
I make a motion that, first reading of ordinance 2023-708.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion from anyone? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Let the record show Mr. Bullock voted no. Okay, we will move then, we will close the public hearing at this point. We will move then to item E, which is resolution 2023-31, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston authorizing the submission of an application for a charging and fueling infrastructure discretionary grant to the United States Department of Transportation, DOT, Federal Highway Administration. Ms. Jones.
Thank you. The U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration announced funding for the U.S. Department of Transportation Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Discretionary Grant. So this is part of that big infrastructure funding that's come out. The City of Williston is considering applying for a project that would include paving and infrastructure for adding electric vehicle charging stations to city property. The 2 places that we are looking at are Block 12, which would just ask for a little bit of an engineering design change, but that should all be paid for in the grant, so it shouldn't be an issue. And also looking to swap some property with current property owners on the north side of town to see if we could get a little bit of a parking lot over there. It's actually Homestead Park. And pave it and maybe get another entrance. I don't know if this is gonna cost $1.5 million. It's due at the end of the month, and it's actually been extended 2 weeks, thank goodness. And this is just an estimate right now. They're coming out tomorrow to walk through. I have a company that sells the charging station that is gonna help us a little bit with this grant. They're gonna give us a better idea of how much it's gonna cost. I have been told to try and go after as much as possible because it is a huge pool of money, and they're probably going to award the bigger projects to make it look good and not have to look at so many grants. If everybody put in a little bit, then they'll have to look at, 1,500, 2,000 grants. They can't do it. And there is a 20% match. So with the match, if we come out to 1.5 million, the match would be 300,000. And we're going to try and do that with all in-kind contributions. So that would be labor, materials we already have, and the land swap. So we're hoping that we don't have to do any cash. And this is not asking you for $300,000. All I'm asking is to allow me the next 4 weeks to write this grant, come up with some good numbers, some good engineering, and send it in. And then we'll come back and ask you if we get awarded, if we can accept it. So you're not making any commitments right now, you're just allotting my time.
Question?
Yeah, well, that sounds great, the no money thing. I'd like to see that when you bring that up here. Do we have an idea how many people in Williston, or driving through Williston, is there a study or anything that lets us know what kind of profit this could be for the city?
Yes, so there are a lot of studies for this. We are in the perfect, I mean, there is not a better place. We're on 3 highways that are part of this corridor, and they all come to a triangle right here. So that's very exciting. Also, what is very exciting is that we don't have any other ones nearby. Now, we do know that there are some coming in for private companies around the city, but this is the only one, I think 30 miles we had. So they should rank as extremely high for location. So this is the right place. Now, can we afford to do it with the 20%? We hope so. We hope we can get all that in kind. The other thing is we'll come out again because they're not going to spend all the money, but the match is going to be higher next time. It's going to be probably more like 50%, they're saying.
One other point that we want to make is that keep in mind with the charging stations, both locations would be under our power. And so the earning potential on the utility side is the other side of revenue to consider. So that was another reason why we were interested having both of these being under our power grid.
So the utilities and the planning department always work together. I am happy to have somebody hang out for half an hour and go to one of the local businesses, and they're happy to have somebody charging their car for half an hour. So it works out for both of us.
And I understand that there are, as you said, maps with roadways
Yes,
that tell these people with electric cars where to go and how to drive. It would actually direct them to Williston.
Yes, ma'am.
And they would stop in Williston to maybe go to a restaurant and do whatever they would do while they were here, go
That's
to the
what we're
antique
doing.
store, because we were on that route.
It would actually make us a destination at that point.
We could make us a destination, that's right. That's the way I understand it. That was the reason we started looking at it to begin with. And I can tell you there are some people here in town who are really excited about it. They keep asking me when we're going to do it. Because I mentioned that we might have one in Block 12. Because I had heard that earlier. I hadn't heard about the other. But I did hear about the possibility of building one into the new utilities behind Block 12. Will it assist with building that area?
A little bit, but also if we have a little bit of extra matching that we need to do, the CRA may be able to contribute as well, and I forgot to mention that earlier.
Okay.
But they will pay for the infrastructure and some paving, but they're not going to pave the whole
Right.
the whole project.
I know they want to do the whole thing, but possibly around the area
Mm-hmm.
to designate a portion of it.
Yeah.
I don't like the $300,000 either. It sounds good if we can pull some in-kind together using FEMA rates, I guess, or something of that nature. Yeah, Mr. Bishop.
Something to think about is we've already got a charging station in town for city utilities, or city vehicles.
Right.
But by doing a public charging station, it would also help deter people from putting substations in their own homes for the fire risk and the grid issues that would bring. So that would offset some of that, and the ones people I've been talking to would gladly use the actual charging stations instead of putting them in their homes.
Okay. Chief Rolls.
And I'm happy about all that, and I'm happy about the growth. But we also need to keep in mind that there's public safety that comes along with becoming that hub for electric vehicles and people parking and waiting for 30, 40 minutes for the vehicles to charge. So we also need to keep that cost in mind as we're looking at this $300,000, because it's actually going to cost more, because we're going to have more people to service the people when they come to this community, or protect them and give them the services that they deserve when they're here. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yep. From a police department standpoint, thank you. Or fire and rescue, for that matter. All right, Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, just for future reference, if that $300,000 is not in kind, if it costs the city $1, I will be adamantly against that, because there's so much we can do here with $300,000 or any portion thereof. And I will not, I know I'm only one person up here, but I will definitely not approve any monetary unless it is just in kind. So I just wanted to get that out there right now.
Is that for all grants, sir?
For this grant,
Just for charging stations?
yeah, for
Okay.
this grant right here.
You have questions?
So I think, Madam President, if I would have a moment, so what you will see from us coming forward is, keeping in mind the budget the way it is. The one reason that we actually pushed this forward was because it was, in-kind contributions are allowed. So, so that goes with the current theme of doing this project, so, and you'll see that on the next one too.
All right, at this time, we are asking for permission to apply for the grant, and it's Resolution 2023-31. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to apply for the grant of resolution 2023-31.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item F, Resolution 2023-32, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston authorizing the submission of an application for hazardous mitigation grant programming for Hurricane Ian, DR 4673, to the Florida Division of Emergency Management. Ms. Jones.
Thank you. So we're really excited about this grant because this is a FDEM announced the availability of this hazard mitigation grant as the result of recent presidential disaster declaration for the Hurricane Ian. And the reason we're excited about this is because so rarely can we get money to help our electrical infrastructure. And that's exactly what we're going to do with this one. This is for hardening pole-operated reclosers on the power grid. And I do not have the final numbers because, again, this isn't due till the end of the month, but we're looking about $221,757.50.
That sounds pretty specific.
That sounds pretty specific to me too, but we're gonna make sure that that's correct. And this has a 25% match. That would be around $50,000, but in-kind contributions are also allowed, and Mike has said that we have a lot of these materials, and we also have our staff, so that number should probably go down. Again, we're just asking to write the grant, spend the time on it. You don't have to accept the grant until I bring it back to you, and we'll have hardened numbers by then.
Would you like an explanation of what we're doing?
Yeah, the polls,
Yeah.
what is, yeah.
So what we would be doing is there's 5 locations throughout town, starting from the Duke transmission station. And there are, if you guys remember, reclosures that we purchased. Those reclosures to this day still are not up because there's a cost associated with putting them up and actually programming them. So our in-kind contribution, if you remember, council bought 2 to replace and then to have 1 as a backup, so we weren't ever in that position again. And Duke is really pushing us to get off of their reclosure. They said there was a limited time window. Before we put up those reclosures, what this does is it puts up a ductile iron, which if you remember from the times Mr. McCleary's been here from FMPA, there's 3 levels of readiness. There's your standard wood pole, your concrete pole, and then the cream of the crop is those ductile iron. They just basically will all be dead and they'll be long here still. So we discussed them in the workshop. So what we would be doing is in these strategic places putting the ductile iron in, and then as part of that project, someone else would come in and professionally install those reclosures, train our staff on the reclosures, and implement. And that's our in-kind. That came to $76,000 that we've spent. So even at the $55,000, we've already matched the in-kind and exceeded it on that purchase. So we don't suspect that there would be any cost, even if the cost of the project actually increased. This continues down 121. Not far from Williston Tire and the Tavern. There's another pole there, and then there's 2 other locations as well. And we would harden all of those. One of those locations, if you remember, there was a big expense when a truck took out a bunch of them, and there had to be some reworking of that area. So this would prevent that from happening. And the duplicity in the reclosures would allow for less outages in the future and small interruptions, and it wouldn't affect such large areas of town at a time. It would minimize that to a degree. So that's what was exciting about this grant, is it accomplished multiple goals, and we eventually have to come up with the cost of putting up those reclosures, even if they go on the current infrastructure that's there, and this would mitigate that cost to the department.
Sounds like a plan. Any further questions, Mr. Bullock? Anybody else? All right, so we will entertain resolution 2023-32. If I
I
can
make
get
a
a motion.
motion, we approve resolution 2023-32.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item G is resolution 2023-34. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, approving a proposed replat for the minor subdivision Old School Plaza Lot 1, or Book 1486, page 1613, parcel 22234001000, into 2 lots. Ms. Jones.
Thank you. So this is the Old School Plaza, Williston Shopping Center Partners LLC. This one is located at 345 West Noble Ave, which we'll have to get another address for. McMillan Surveying is the agent, and Williston Shopping Partners are the property owners. Currently, this parcel consists of 1 lot, which is 3.336 acres, and the zoning is commercial intensive. The plat proposes 2 lots. The west lot at 1.505 and the east lot at 1.831. So essentially they have about 3 acres, and they would like to split it in half and sell them both. The reason we asked them to replat it was because there's a lot of covenants that go with this plat. There's roads and infrastructure, and we didn't want any of the owners to not know their responsibilities. And if you just split it and give them a new parcel number, sometimes that paperwork doesn't follow. So, and anytime you mess in a plat, you really should replat. So those are the 2 reasons that you're seeing this split when you typically won't see a split. So this already went to Planning and Zoning on May 10th, and they approved it to come to you guys. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Ms. Jones?
Is that a lot by the church?
Yes.
Yes.
Old basketball court?
And where the Aldi's was originally going.
Yes.
So why are we wanting to replat?
Probably because they have buyers, but they wanted a smaller acreage.
It was
They'll put
originally
2
big, they were gonna
businesses.
put the Aldi's there, and now evidently he's got 2 smaller.
Yeah, they'll put 2 businesses instead of 1.
Will he be fixing the roads, making them, I know we have the one issue with the fire hydrant that's there that kind of sits down below. What about the roads themselves?
That's the one behind Tractor Supply.
Yeah, they'll have to fix all of that infrastructure.
Either that or they'll maintain it instead of us, like we're doing currently.
Currently, yes ma'am, we've never received those utilities.
We've never accepted them. They're responsible for all the maintenance on them at the moment.
Mhm.
I assume, unless they fix them, it would be the same.
And unless they bring those roads up to our standards, we will not be accepting them.
Are the interior roads the same way?
They're private
They
right
are.
now.
I knew the one in the very back was. I didn't know about the interior ones. Chief Rolls.
That's the question I was gonna ask, that, if they separate those and they sell them off, that road behind there is a private road. They can shut that road at any time. Is that correct? So they can cut that road off at any given time from the church down to Tractor Supply.
Well, they can't just cut off their road because it is an easement.
It's private property though, right?
With an easement, yes.
With the easement, but what do you mean, just close the road?
It used to be closed before,
Yeah,
when
it's
the
private.
school was there.
It's private property. They can shut that
And
road.
we never accepted it, so it's essentially still private property.
Correct.
Right, so all of the business owners who are on this plat, who all have a part of that road, would have to agree to close that road.
Because they all benefit from it.
I'm just asking because I'm telling you, it's a private road.
Pull it down a little bit if you will.
So how is it private property if
You gotta be close to it, huh? Move.
You got to almost put your mouth right on it. That's why
Yeah,
I
there you
sit
go.
here with the thing in my mouth practically.
It's a voice microphone.
That better?
Yes. Don't be afraid.
So when you say it's private property for who? I mean, if each individual, business has to agree, then whose property is it to shut it down?
I would just say that when they built the road, they did not build it up to the specifications that the city of Williston told them to build it to. So when they got ready to deed it to the city of Williston, we told them, no, thank you. Because we told them that it would not be there for long. It would deteriorate at a more rapid rate. And I think the word was used was slide, that the asphalt would begin to slide because it was not adhered to the previous sub-base, stuff I had to learn, as it should have been. So the city of Williston has not accepted the road.
So who owns the road?
Each individual business, Popeyes, O'Reilly's, Tractor Supply, whoever this new person was.
I thought it was private
Williston
property.
Shopping
Is it still part of the Williston Shopping
LLC.
Center? Okay.
Yeah.
owns the road and the interior utilities and the interior roads.
Yeah, so I think my question would be, does the plating go all the way back to the back of the property line, taking up the roadway?
It's part of the plat, the original plat, so all of those original covenants are also on this plat. So all the original roads and all that stuff is also part of this plat.
And the plat includes Southwest First Avenue.
Yes.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to mention.
All the way to the south side of the road.
So if you, actually, this is a good picture because it shows you where the city, isn't that the blue? Where we have it and then where it starts with theirs.
Yeah. So all those interior roads are not ours either. I knew that because it's a private parking lot. Just like Winn-Dixie's a parking lot, it's not ours. It's pretty much the same principle. Go ahead.
So looking at this, I see the road behind the lines, and so there's a road in between the lines.
Very
That's
true.
the road that you're talking about, that you're saying is private property, which is Southwest First Avenue.
Southwest
That right
First
there.
Avenue from Southwest 3rd Street to the other side of Tractor Supply is a private road.
Okay, so if something happens when that road has to be fixed, then everybody has to agree to get it fixed if it belongs to somebody else?
No, they have, their covenants will cover that in the plat.
So Old School Plaza.
Yes.
Williston Shopping Center Inc.
Williston Shopping Center LLC or whoever they sell to. That's why we wanted to plat it instead of just split it, because I wanted to make sure that those two people knew that they were part of this whole plat.
But the problem is they're not selling it as one big thing. They're selling it individually, like
Exactly.
like Ms. Hines said. And what the chief said as well. And I also look at her line, just like she's pointed out, the line is on the north side of the road, not the south side of the road.
Right, so it's not even part of the plat.
So it doesn't look like it's part of the plat, unless the lines are in the wrong place.
Which was that was my question. Are they not selling that part of the roadway?
They may have kept the road themselves, rather than selling it to the individuals.
So Blue Rock or Williston Shopping, whichever conglomerate they're using this day, they also own the lot on the other side of Southwest First. They own that whole strip.
Yeah, they own the old Evanston property,
Mhm.
where the blue line is. But not, but it leaves out the road instead of coming straight across.
One's half,
I know the line.
Yeah, the
over
property
there.
appraiser's not gonna show you this right. I can go and get the big plat if you'd like to see it.
Okay, so you think
So both of those come out to the middle?
the center
Sort
line,
of, yeah.
if there was a center line. I could see that being an issue in the future when the road decides to fall apart.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can definitely see that being a problem.
Did you say, I'm sorry.
Okay, any other questions? Excellent questions. Chief Steele.
I'm sorry, I was just looking at the property appraiser's website, and it shows that portion of the road behind Tractor Supply and all as part of the shopping center LLC.
Right.
But it shows the other portion in front of the old Edmondson House place. It's showing that in the city.
I think there is a.
It's showing it in there. I know you're shaking your head no, but I'm just telling you what the property appraiser's showing.
Where that changed was they ripped up that entire section and they installed new water mains, new hydrants, new sewer, new stormwater. And before we would receive it back in proper condition, it had to meet standards. So we did at one time, from where the old gate was to that section, have control. And we would have taken it back again, that section. But unfortunately what happened is the engineers and the staff said it's not up to standard. And until it's brought up to standard, you're liable, this is now your property, until it's delivered back according to the plans that you submitted to abide by. So that's where that came from.
And they never did.
They've never done it.
Never did.
That's why all of the hydrants in there are private.
Right.
All of the roads are private. All the sewer's private. And then there was one main that we did a half cost with them. Our cost was $86,000, and we split that. And that extension of that new main right behind Tractor Supply to O'Reilly's, again, we have an easement, but they own it all in perpetuity because it wasn't delivered to standard.
Again, another issue that will probably come up to bite us. Okay, so we're considering resolution 2023-34. Any additional questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval to split the lot into two.
I'll make a motion to move forward with resolution 2023-34.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 7 is our second opportunity for public participation. If you have anything you would like to add at this time, you have up to 5 minutes to do that. So please come to the podium. I'm seeing there's no one online. Okay, we will move to announcements. Anybody have announcements? I know we have a couple things we need to hear. I think they were speaking earlier about the Ready grant funding workshop. So if you're planning to come to that, it's Friday. If you need to know more information, please contact either the utility department or the city manager or Ms. Wright. I would like for somebody to give me a report on the damage on the Main Street Arcade. During that same storm that we had that took out all the power, we had damage to the new building across the way. I saw people back up there today. Do you have any additional information on that? There was some roof damage. Who wants to chime in?
I can do that for you.
Please.
So we did have some roof damage during that storm we discussed. I think it was last Wednesday. We have, obviously, to get quotes, so our lawyers have guided us in that direction. We're going to get at least 3 quotes. We have some issues because it is a shared roof. We're not really sure how we're going to repair, or replace, or divvy this up, so that's why we need to get these quotes so that I can sit down with the property owners. But right now they're all covered. Our roof is covered, and the 2 property owners adjacent to us are covered with tarps, so we're hoping that that will keep any more damage from occurring on the inside. It is an old, about 19 years old, rolled roof, I guess you could say.
The part that came up.
Yeah, it can be replaced as a whole, or it can be repaired. If it is repaired, the roofers have already told us there will be no warranty on the repairs. So we have to decide whether, as a group, whether we want to replace the whole thing. Some of it's not in bad shape, so they may not want to participate. It's owned, there's 4 owners on that roof.
I know a portion of the roof came off and it blew over and it landed on another person's roof.
Mm-hmm.
It blew over the top of ours.
Mm-hmm.
sustaining some damage to ours, but mostly to another one.
Ours didn't really get damaged because it had just been repaired a
Okay,
little
so
bit
it
when we
blew
just
over the
did-
top of ours and landed on the
Right.
other side. But it wasn't really our roof that blew over, it was somebody else's.
It was our neighbors.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems
So-
like the same stuff that can happen with them duplexes.
Yeah.
So we just all sit down at the table and work it out.
The same problem.
Yeah, very true.
But we do have one more roofing company coming out tomorrow to finish up those quotes. We'll gather those together and
Thank you, appreciate
go
that.
through them.
All right, anybody else have anything, an announcement or a question? Okay, if not, we will entertain a motion
For us,
for anybody.
charter. We started just about a year ago, and that was the extent. So we're gonna be getting that done.
Yep, I actually carry that in my briefcase every time I come and go. And you're right, we never get very far with it. We would pretty much have to start all over again with the distance that we did. So, up to y'all, whenever you're ready. I say we get through budget before we try it.
If we put it off last year too.
We did.
Because of budget.
I didn't want to last time. This time I do, because we're right in the middle of budget.
Just get the date next meeting.
So we'll keep it on the burner. All right, anything else from anyone? Not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. We will adjourn at 7:16.